Right on. So I'm the developer advocate for the Spring team at Pivotal. How many of you guys have heard of Spring? It's a thing. How many of you have heard of Pivotal? Okay. See, Pivotal is Spring. So the former can't be true unless the latter is true. Pivotal is the new home of Spring. It's a large company. We started it last year. Home of, how many of you guys have heard of RabbitMQ? Redis, Tomcat, Grails, Groovy, Spring, of course. All these different technologies. Cloud Foundry, open source platform as a service. All these technologies live at Pivotal. So if you're wondering where Pivotal is or what it is, we're not just some consulting company that happens to know Spring. We are Spring. We're the ones who created it. And now?
And so I'm not going to tell you who is Couchbase because obviously since you're here, you know Couchbase. I'm a developer advocate at Couchbase. I'm in charge of the French-speaking community and the Java community. So hence me talking about Spring with Josh.
In French? Wait, what?
En français, yes.
Oh no, ok. C'est ce que je croyais, mais je n'étais pas sûr. Okay.
Okay, so that's me.
Louis.
Hi again. Yeah, Java, French. As a French guy, you can see some weird tag about food, wine, and I don't know if I put beer in there, but beer works too. I'm a nerdy metalhead living in Paris, and previously I was a community manager at a French company called NoSQL. We did, well, they still do, enterprise content management, and I've joined Couchbase 2 months ago. It's actually my 3rd month, so 3rd days on my 3rd month here at Couchbase, so I'm new. If you're curious, there's my high school band name here somewhere, and you can YouTube it, and you can actually see me on my high school band. So, Josh.
Right. So I'm that's my Twitter coordinates and my email. If you have questions, you leave this room more confused than when you entered, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always at your service. A bit about me, I'm the author of 4 different, going on 5 now, different books about Spring. I'm a committer on 6 other different projects at Spring, including Spring Boot, which we'll look at here today. I'm the idiot that tried to teach Jean-Claude Van Damme how to cloud compute. That didn't go so well. He's not the smartest.
Knocked out.
What?
It's been knocked out a lot.
Yeah, well, it's all the splitting. It depletes the blood. And then that's me being fondled by Duke at Java 1 a few years ago. Okay, so about Spring. How many of you guys have heard of Spring Boot? I'm curious, just a show of hands. How many of you guys have heard of, how many of you have seen the new Spring website, spring.io? Okay, so the goal here, ever so quickly, we started last year, as I said, a federated sort of company full of lots of great open source bits, and we said we need to make this as easy as possible for people to get started. We want to make it so that people can really, really just hit the ground running. And we said, what can we do to not just keep maintaining the status quo, but how do we level up? How do we take it to the next level? So Spring Boot is one part of that story. Spring XD, oh wow. Hey, quit it. Thanks. Spring Boot is one part of that story. It's a way of building applications without having to worry about the configuration. I mentioned all this to say that we're going to use Spring Boot today. We're hoping right now, we're working towards having a checkbox here so that you can choose Couchbase, say I want to use Couchbase. This is a way of building an application based on the style of workload that you want to support. So for example, I can say that I want web support, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose Java 1.8. I'm going to choose the latest and greatest 1.2.0.m1 milestone. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate, and what I'll get is an empty zip file, well, fairly empty. Goodbye to this, goodbye to that, goodbye to that. Paste. Right, so unzip. And what you get is a fairly unassuming directory structure. Were you to look at it on the command line here, you'd see there's fairly little to it, right? You've got an application Java class, you've got an application.properties, which is empty, you have empty static and templates directory, and you have an application tests class. If you look at the code here, it's, again, fairly unintimidating, basic public static void main, and then the unit test simply opens that public static void main and launches the beans. So again, we've done code generation, but don't hold it against us. This is as far as we're going to go for code gen. Did I piss off IntelliJ? Sad. No, it's the other one. Yeah, okay, here's a good. So the Maven build in of itself. How many of you are, how many of you have the dubious pleasure of maintaining a Maven build somewhere? Awkward. Oh yeah, Gradle for the win. You can choose Gradle, by the way. I'm a Gradle fan. Gradle's great. Maven, Gradle. So choose either one, whatever your poison. Right, so now we have a basic empty directory, empty project. We're going to go ahead and build up an application here that talks to Spring Data Couchbase. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the dependencies here. Is that right?
Yeah, go ahead.
First things first. We're going to look at this now and never talk about it again. And hopefully in the final Spring Boot integration, you won't even have to worry about this much. So what we're doing is we're saying, I want to talk to Spring Data Couchbase 1.2.0.release. That in turn requires Spring Data Commons. Thank you. We're going to be talking to Facebook. We'll come back to that. And we're going to be doing validation. So I brought in these beans. For the major dependencies that are stable, that are part of the Spring Boot portfolio, we don't have to specify a version for anything here. So I can just import Spring Boot Starter Web because it's all specified in this parent POM that we've been given. Okay. Okay, now. Just by show of hands, how many of you guys have seen this diagram? It's architecture, but it's kind of useful for understanding where we're coming from. Basically, when we talk about Spring these days, we want people to think in terms of just Spring, not Spring Batch, not Spring Data, not Spring Integration. These pieces play well together. They're part of a larger crayon box full of great colors, you know. So Foundation represents all these different libraries. The execution layer describes the things that are meant to run and manage processes. So Spring Boot, of course, is how we're going to build our application. It's a rapid application development convention over configuration centric framework. Grails is sort of the same thing for web apps based on the Groovy language. And Spring XD is our big data and data ingestion and integration technology. So that's actually a natural vehicle for Couchbase as well. Okay, so about Spring Data, which is just one of those many colors, one of those many crayons.
Yeah, so about more precisely Spring Data Couchbase. Spring Data Couchbase is based on the first version of the SDK, you know, there's the 1.4.4. So you know that with this SDK you can access the administration console from Couchbase, you can create buckets, you can create views, you can access those buckets, and when you want to store some object in that bucket, you have to do your own marshalling, because the first version of the Java SDK doesn't support any kind of marshalling. You can store anything you want into Couchbase. You know that you can even store binaries. So if you want to use the document features, you have to marshal your object into actual JSON document. And that's one of the very good points of Spring Data Couchbase. It will do the marshalling for you, but we will come back to that later on. So we're going to quickly show you a demo. Well, actually, that's not going to be quickly. That's going to be the rest of the talk about how to set up quickly a Spring Data Couchbase-based project, how to do configuration, how to model entities, how to store those entities thanks to the repository and template abstraction from Spring Data, and how to use Hibernate validation and caching. So right now, you can see the good old XML configuration file for Spring. And the good news is that we also support the Java-based configuration. So maybe you want to talk a bit about...
Yeah, so how many of you guys are using Java configuration in Spring? Just show of hands, I'm curious. Okay, the rest of you guys, come on.
Why?
Why? Use Java configuration. Java, for all of its faults and flaws, it turns out, is actually quite good at creating Java objects. It doesn't do much else, but Java objects, it's pretty good at describing them. Better at least than XML. So do prefer it if you can. And if you can't, you need to slap somebody around. Go to your architect and say, no, bad architect, go home. So Java configuration is a way of building and defining these beans. You create producer methods. These methods are annotated with @bean. So when you see me defining beans today, those methods get invoked by the container. The resulting bean is stored in the context and then made available for injection. And it gets all the services that Spring provides, including AOP and all that stuff. We often provide abstract base configuration classes for our various projects. For example, here we have the abstract Couchbase configuration type. And this provides template methods that you need to fill in to tell Spring Data Couchbase where to go, who to talk to, what to do, etc. So I think this is fairly intuitive, yeah?
Yeah, it is. So with it, you have...
Can you do multiple configs? Because otherwise I can't extend some other...
Yeah, you cannot access
oh, yeah.
this bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have, I mean, literally normally I have a configuration class, and then,
How do you import them, right?
or yeah, or if they're all, if you just typed at configuration on a class right below this, it would get picked up, assuming you have at component scan.
Right.
So it's all good, yeah. Question was, can I do multiple configuration classes? Absolutely. People build modular apps, maybe web services, and then you've got your REST API, and you've got a web app, and you've got database configuration, transaction management, or messaging, or whatever, Divide those into logical configuration modules. So,
yeah, I was going to say, you have, with just extending this, you have access to Couchbase clients, obviously mapped to the host and the bucket you see here. You have a Couchbase template, which we're going to talk about later, that lets you store object or get object from Couchbase. You have login configuration. You have Spring Data Couchbase configuration, custom converters, that sort of stuff that we're going to show you. Right now, we're going to actually add the config to our sample app.
okay. So we're going to be cheating here. Don't tell anybody. First things first, we're going to need configuration properties, because we don't want to have all this stuff hard-coded in the code. So I'm going to open up application.properties, which is a file that Spring Boot is going to load by default if it's there. If you prefer YAML, then we can use snake YAML, put that in the class path, and then create a file called application.yaml. And then we're going to actually flesh out our Java configuration here. So we've got a basic application class with public static void main, Spring application.run. Spring is going to see this type. It's going to see that you want to run this. It's going to find the at configuration annotation, and it's going to scan this bean for any other at bean definitions. It's also going to scan any other beans in this package or any deeper packages that have at service or at controller or at component, etc. And this is the magic, right? This is the Spring Boot annotation. I personally think this should have been named at enable at I want to go home early, right? You don't want to waste time with configuring stuff. And Spring, while powerful, does sort of give you a lot of different flexibility. Spring Boot tries to give you the 80% case out of the box, and that's enabled through this. So what you're going to see is, except for that very little bit of Couchbase configuration, which again we hope to mitigate with Spring Boot, with the Spring Boot integration module, you're going to do very, very little configuration here. Okay, so let's do our little bit of config.
So we set up the bucket name, the password, the host of your cluster, which are again on our application properties file.
I need dependencies, don't I?
You already added them, I think.
Okay.
I think you did.
Voila.
So you just need to import everything.
Everything happy? So Spring is going to see this type. It's going to see that we have fields that are annotated with at value, and it's going to resolve these properties by looking in the various configured property sources, including application.properties. It's going to see that our cluster is running on 192.168.41.102, which, by the way, I, a simpleton, a heathen, a Luddite, managed to get working with thanks to the amazing Vagrant scripts that Couchbase has put out. So it's, what is it, Couchbase /Vagrant?
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you just go in there, literally just type in Vagrant up. If you haven't used Vagrant, do it. It's awesome. So I have a 4-node cluster running on my machine here. Okay. Oh, and we need
Facebook, because we're going to get some data from Facebook.
And this is our first at bean, right? So this is a Facebook template, basically. It's the type, the root type is Facebook, but of course, it's actually a Facebook template, right? So, and this Facebook template, like the JDBC template, like the Couchbase template, like the any other JMS template, etc., provides convenient one-liner method invocations for common case scenarios like traversing the friend API and talking to people there. If you want to do unauthenticated access, you can, but we're going to do authenticated access against their REST API. This is part of the Spring Social project. Okay, so we've got that, don't we? What else do we need?
So now we can connect to Couchbase. We can connect to Facebook. We need to store the result of our Facebook query into an object. So we need to model an entity. We are going to do a search for places. We're going to search for Starbucks and Phil's Coffee around here. And so our entity will be a place with a name, a location, GPS coordinates, very basic stuff. So we're going to show you the code. Actually, it's going to be much easier, and I'm going to. So where's the script?
Command.
How can I copy paste our POJO object?
Again, don't ever do this at home, not even when you're alone and nobody can see you. Copy and paste is bad unless you're us.
Unless you're doing a demo.
Yeah.
And you don't have
Sorry?
an hour and a half in front of you.
What?
I said PSHA.
Oh, yeah.
Copy paste is great.
I know.
Something's wrong here.
Oh, you pasted it inside. Command Z.
And here. That's better.
And then you.
And I need another one here. Okay, cool. So I need to do some imports. There you go.
So these are basically, this is a page. This is a place object that's going to take a copy constructor. It has a copy constructor that takes a Spring Social page. And we're going to use that page information to get information about the places that we've gotten from the Facebook API. You know how you can go to Facebook and check in at places? This is that same database. How many of you guys have, it's okay, you're among friends. We've all done it, we all tried it once in college. How many of you are on Facebook? No judging. Nobody's judging you. It's okay.
He's actually using my access token, so if you copy it, you will be able to do weird stuff with my account.
Yeah.
Please don't do it.
I was kidding, by the way. I'm totally judging you. Facebook. Goodness. Carry on. Is that working?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It's just, is it your...
It's the wrong annotation. Wrong type.
right.
Oh,
Oops.
Java.
Cheaper slugging. Ugh.
So many different permutations of the same entity.
That's better.
There we go.
Okay, so the main object is the place object. You can see that because we put @document annotation. It is not strictly necessary. You can store POJO directly into Couchbase, but the idea is to show the other developer that read your code that you intend to actually store that as an object into Couchbase. And as you can see, there's an expiry method. So if you're familiar with Couchbase, you know that you can set up time to live for an object. So you could just say expiry and give it the time to live. That's the document annotation, and then there's the field annotation, which is again saying, hey, this field is supposed to be persisted into Couchbase. And I think we forgot something here.
You don't technically need that field though, right?
No.
No. It'll work if you omit it, but we mention it just so you can see that there's various options, not the least of which is the ability to specify
a name of a field, because maybe insertion date is too long. Maybe you wanna like just a date, or I don't know.
So by default, it'll resolve the field name from the variable. Okay.
Okay. So two other important thing. When you map a string field to a JSON field, that's pretty straightforward. Same for numbers. If you want to map a date, you're not going to store the serialized Java objects in your JSON object. That makes no sense. So we have a bunch of converters that are already here, and that will, for instance, convert this date object into an epoch integer in the JSON object. And the other thing you need to know is that you can add simple object like location, which I'm going to show you right now. Location, 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 which is just a simple POJOs, no getter, just a bunch of field, no annotation. And this will be stored as an object, as a JSON object inside our place JSON object that we are first storing
embedded
into
in the
Couchbase.
document.
Embedded in the document. Yeah, that's it.
Questions
okay.
on that so far? Thoughts, feedback? Yep.
Do you guys have support for naming conventions, like fields, collection names?
Isn't that one too? That's the new,
There's a new one.
field naming strategy, right? That's exactly what.
Yeah.
So that's coming in the new Spring Data Commons bits. Actually, I think we might even have that on here. But the answer is yes. It's just relatively new. So don't pin us down for a demo right now. Yes, sir.
Will the regular POJO reference that gets put in as JSON be messed up?
Yeah, that's what we're doing here. So you'll have the outer place document, and then in line will be a location type. So it'll be.
Can location have another?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can just
As
nest.
deep as you like, but do try and avoid cyclic references. JSON hates that. Jackson, it gets so angry. Have you ever had your computer program give you the finger? It just prints out ASCII artwork like no. It'll happen. It will
Because
happen.
it's actually using Jackson behind.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about entities. And there's an @nutl annotation, but I'm going to talk about it a bit later. It's haven't validation.
So we need some way to talk to the database. Can I go ahead and introduce the repository?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You need a way to store and retrieve those entities.
Now, of course, we should mention that there is the Couchbase template, which provides all sorts of convenient methods for talking to a Couchbase instance or your cluster. However, we have things to do, places to be, and we can do better. So have you guys, how many of you have had the dubious pleasure of using something called Ruby on Rails? Again, it's okay, no judgment. We all did it once in college. We won't tell anybody. That community is a little fun. They have some interesting ideas. And one of them is this idea of an active record. So you can say class, place, whatever, active record, hey, and then p equals place.new. Or I can do p is equals place, find by location, whatever, 1, 2, 3, street, right? So this idea that I can actually build up finder methods that are dynamically translated into methods against the back end is very convenient. You notice that we haven't actually defined any finder methods in this type here. We can't quite get away with that kind of shenanigans in the Java world. We have a compiler to appease after all. But it's an interesting idea, and we support that, right? So this is something called a repository in Java. So what we're doing is we're saying interface place repository extends CRUD repository, and it's going to be a repository to deal with entities of type place whose ID is of type string, right? So we're saying that our ID is of type string, and we have a type place, and we can now define. We get for our troubles, we get a whole bunch of methods for dealing with CRUD style operations: create, read, update, delete, find, delete, and batch, etc., as well as finder methods, specific ones. And then this, of course, has a corresponding relationship to the back end.
Yeah, it's using the under the hood, it's using the Couchbase template that you talked about earlier.
Okay.
So it's using the find by view method. Do we have a? No, we don't have a slide there.
Show them the views and all that stuff. What does that?
Yeah.
What does that turn into?
Okay. So where's your Couchbase console? It's here.
Voilà.
Good. So you guys are probably already familiar with views. The CRUD repository lets you do operation with the key like save, insert, get, everything. And then you get the find all option, the find all method, the count method. And those like query list method are obviously backed by views. So let's just take a look at the old view, which is a very basic view. We are looking for only place objects. And when you store an object with Spring Data Couchbase, there's a field that's automatically filled for you. That's underscore class and the complete name of your class. So right now, we are filtering all the JSON document we have on this. It has to be a place object. And then we just emit the ID, and you can see that there's a count reduce for the count method that comes from the CRUD repository.
So the repositories will automatically look up appropriately named views and then delegate that. So it's, you can build your client side very quickly, and you get the right result.
Right. So for instance, if you do find something and you have a view named something, it will just use that view. And here I have view by insertion date. So I can show you the by insertion date view. That's here. That's also filtering on the, yeah, we need to, that's better.
Is that at all legible?
Yeah.
So basic stuff, right? This is not hard, but you can see the relationship here between the view and the back end. I think we should now build a service, something to actually work with this. So do you want to go ahead and copy and paste that stuff?
The Facebook service. So as we said, we are looking for places by Facebook. So where's that service? That's the place service.
This is just a standard Spring Bean standard service where we can keep coarser-grained business logic that'll then in turn delegate to the underlying repository, etc. Híjole, is it already 12:09? When does this thing finish?
We have 10 minutes.
Oh, guys, hold on to your ascots. This is going to be a rough ride.
Okay, so no, not okay. I think we're good. So we talked about searching for places. We have here a search method that takes as parameters as a query name, like we are looking right now for Starbucks coffee, which takes latitude and longitude to know and where you are actually looking for those places, and a distance to draw a circle and find those coffees. So right now you can see a call to the Facebook Search API. And since we're using Java 8, we can do stream and pass the object as they come in, map them to our place POJO object, retrieve the ID of the object, and then this will return a list of all the ID of the document, the places document, that have been saved during our map right here.
That's using the place repository that we created earlier. Is this familiar with the syntax? This is Java 8 streaming API using Lambdas. It's just the equivalent code in non-Lambda form would be thousands and thousands of lines or something, maybe 10, I don't know. They look alike to me.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Okay. What else is there? So yeah,
Basic service. We can now use that actually to drive
so
some data.
We're gonna add the runner right now, I think.
Let's do it. So let's build something that will actually run some code. We've gotten this far. We might as well get something out of it. We've earned it, I think. All of us here in this room suffered through this together. We're going to define an @bean. Again, just what we want is a bean that will get run when the application starts up. We're going to put it in our configuration.
Sean.
Open source. Thank you. The sneeze heard around the world.
Something we forgot to talk about. If you are using the repository abstraction, you need to actually enable the Couchbase repository support. So without this annotation, having this is pointless.
Yep.
This is because we have the annotation that the implementation of this interface will be actually created by Spring.
All right, great point. Yeah, these interfaces, you don't implement them. Spring will do it for you based on the convention of the method names. So again, it's a bean that you can inject and use whenever you want, but you don't have to provide the definition, which is why I say it's uncannily like the stuff in Ruby and Rails.
Yeah, I don't know if you did the developer training from Couchbase, but it lasts like 3 days, and with Spring you can do it in, we started 30 minutes ago, so yeah, that's it.
So here's our command line runner. This is a bean that has one job. It is to get the arguments from public static void main, and then when the application starts up, it will run your logic. It's like a place to put application initialization logic. If you're doing a back office kind of headless, no web server, no UI kind of app, then this is natural as well for batch or integration kind of code. Remember what I said, this is an @bean definition. Spring's going to see this method. It's going to see the two parameters, and it's going to see those as dependencies. So it's going to inject a reference to the place repository, and it's going to inject a reference to the place service. And then we can use that in our bean definition. We're using Java 8, so remember we could have done this, but again, why? So we're not going to do that. We're going to use Java Lambdas. It's much more concise. We can just, this gets synthesized into that interface, and it's much more concise, I think.
So let's just run this and look at what it does. So,
do you want to try something risky? Do you want to be that guy?
Do you have the internet yet here?
I'm scared. What if we don't?
I think we don't. So we're actually going to cheat.
Do we have the internet?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Do you?
Don't lie to me.
Maybe we have. Oh yeah, you use Spring Boot. You have the internet. You went on Spring Boot. Yeah. Sure.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
We're going to delete our data and then re-import it. So
So uncomment the flush.
Here we are.
The bucket flush here. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Whoa. Okay. So reading the logic, we're going to say go through each of these places. Find the results on Facebook for those places, all the results in that area, and then for each record that we have, find for each record that we have, call place repository, finding it by the find the ID. So we're going to get back a collection of IDs from the service. We're going to go for each ID and then find it and actually print out the data in that record. So we're going to go from IDs to objects from the database and then print them out. Then we're going to do a count using that same repository. Then we're going to get all the records using the same repository. So just stretching our legs here a little bit, so to speak. Run. Cross your fingers. Can it work? By the way, okay, wait for it. We'll come back to the most important part. Could do. Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's money. That's money. Look at that. So right. So awesome. Starbucks, locations, blah, blah, blah. Now, I know that this is important, but let's talk about the real stuff here. This ASCII artwork is, I think, enterprise grade. We actually have 2 PhDs on the Spring Boot team. And it tickles me to no end to think that at some point one of these guys got a ticket that said we need good ASCII artwork. This is just a bit of pandering. I don't know if you've ever talked to a Node.js developer. They don't understand you. They can't even see you unless they have ASCII artwork. If their vision is based on the ASCII artwork. So if you don't have the ASCII artwork, this will never, ever work. That's why we have this. We want the Node.js developers to be able to understand what's happening. So there you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. And also this works. I should mention that.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. So questions on that before we move on?
Just as you can see, the date is a date object. You can see the toString is actually using the date class, not the integer that we're supposed to have. in the JSON document.
Oh yeah, let's look at the data in the
Let's look at
documents.
this. Yeah, let's just do go on the data bucket and documents, and we should see our documents.
Voila.
And that's it.
So you can see that the date itself is just a long that gets
Integer.
marshaled for us and so on.
And it's not in session date, it's iDate, because
Right.
that's what we put in the field annotation earlier.
Yep.
Validation of the Maven Build repository function names and the views. Is it only happening in runtime?
It's startup. You'll get Spring Data will make you feel less happy about yourself when it starts up.
But actual kind of validation that it would work. So
I
for
don't-
example, if you use like Mongo, Spring Data Mongo repository, there you basically derive whether function name is valid based on the data structures that you're trying to query. In this case, you are binding it to the view.
Right.
Yeah, so the only validation point is in runtime.
At the startup, yeah. There's no compiler step here, of course. So when the application starts up, it's going to try and find all the requisite views on the server side, and it'll bark. Yeah.
So basically, the stuff will fail.
Yeah, it doesn't try and work. So, but that is convention. Is that okay? Yep. You?
Can you go back in the code to the place repository?
Sure. We wrote that code for you guys right here.
The place repository, where are you? You're here.
So how does this map to the view which you created, defined by the
By convention. So by insertion date.
This is the name of the view that's
simply by
defined here.
string like by the name?
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
yeah, that's right here.
So and if I want this, will this automatically appear up if I use the add annotation at the top, or like do I have to write this code?
You don't have to write this code. You have to write the view.
That's it.
That's all.
Yeah, but the method
That's
itself
all.
is based on convention. That's why we have a view called all, because it'll be mapped to find all.
Find all.
Yeah.
And cache entries will have its own. Okay.
Okay.
So each view will map to a particular repository which extends from the CRUD repository.
Each view gets mapped to a method
To a
on the
method,
repository. So this,
If you have a method called find something, you just need a view that's called something, and that's all you need.
So you'll have a list of views in that repository. Sorry, list of methods in that repository with each corresponding to one view.
So since you extend CRUD repository, you actually have find all, and here we had it find by insertion date, so it corresponds to the by insertion
You
view.
have like different design docs.
So design doc works with the object you're storing. As you can see, the CRUD repository is use generic, and it says it's a CRUD repository of place, and the ID is a string. So just by adding place here, it means that the associated design document of this repository will be placed in a lowercase.
so by the name of the
So
design
if-
doc is inferred by the name of the type. Is that okay? Yeah.
Customize.
You mean what do you mean customize?
Customize means like according to my project, I want to I don't want complete object. Like find all means it will give you all complete
Oh.
object.
If you want lower level support, there is the Couchbase template itself, right? And you can use that here. Like you can say, this is the Couchbase template supports methods like inserting and querying and so on, but it doesn't necessarily have any idea about your mappings. You can simply do basic queries, right? If you want to save an object and so on, it'll do that kind of stuff.
Well,
Check for something by
let's
ID.
talk about the query view, for instance. If you're familiar with the SDK, it returns a view response, which is the low-level SDK API.
Right.
So if you know the SDK, you should be fine.
And you can get a Couchbase client out of that and do that as well. So the repository is a higher level sort of object-oriented way of thinking about the domain. If you want the lower level stuff, it's there as well, and we configure it for you. Is that okay? Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the query object that you got there is from query ESL or it's from your own API?
Oh, that's from the Couchbase API. The query object here.
Is it like filtering or?
No, it's the query object comes from the Java SDK. It's the one you would use when you're just using the Java SDK. And let's take, for instance, the find by insertion date method and view and query. The view find by insertion date emits on the doc.insertion date objects. So you need a query to, like the usual Java SDK query. And we are setting up, whoops, a different key. So we're saying set range ends because we want to get all the dates lower than this date here.
Right.
So it's the exact same query object you use from the Java SDK.
So you can do all that. Is that okay? Can we, let's run through the actual proper talk. We're so close to being done anyway. And then
we take all the question after, yeah.
Okay, good stuff,
Okay,
good stuff.
so
building a service, done.
for that, wait a second,
Couchbase.
Couchbase down.
Right.
Talk about validation.
So in this case, all the data that comes back from Facebook is perfectly valid because they never lie on Facebook. It's not possible. It's the law. But let's just assume that somewhere along the line, somebody's introduced bad data. Not you, of course,
But us.
but somebody. And validation can be very, very useful here. So how many of you know about JSR 303, the JavaX validation API? It's originally a rubber stamping of the Hibernate Validator API. You can use that on your POJOs
example here.
for Couchbase as well, right? And that's just natively supported. So here's a simple example. If the name field is null, then we want to throw a big exception, right? To set this stuff up, we're going to go ahead and install a validating Couchbase event listener and the local validator factory bean. This comes from the Spring Data Couchbase library, the module. We're just going to install that bean here. And again, with boot, we're hoping that this all just gets installed for you by default. Voila. Okay.
I think that's it.
Yep.
Do you have the POM? Yeah.
Yeah, it's already
Okay,
compiling and everything.
So now it should fail.
So show the error case.
The place we've created here just has an ID, that's all. It doesn't have a name.
Right. So we ran the code
So
before, but we
name.
didn't run these 2 lines because they were going to throw an exception. So that's going to do everything it did before. And then,
And it didn't, for some reason. Maybe we forgot something.
Did we?
I don't know.
Are you sure?
I don't think so.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, it was going so well.
Wait, go back to the, are we sure we have the annotation and everything on the right place?
The annotation? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have.
Oh, there it is. Okay, it just took a second.
Yeah, it was just
Eventually
a bit
inconsistent.
longer. Let me get this here. So it's sending a constraint violation exception because name was null, and we put the @not null annotation on the name field. So that means it works.
Yeah, despite your humble
trace.
hosts.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's just a quick word about validation, and now a quick word about caching, I think. Yeah, caching. So caching is a bit of a different use case than, it comes from actually Spring Core, not Spring Data. And the good thing about Couchbase is that since you can store anything, like binaries, for instance, it's pretty easy to do caching. You can cache anything because you can store binaries. So all you have to do is declare caching configuration first, obviously. So
this is an SPI. There's a cache manager interface at the core of this API. There are numerous implementations provided by both Spring Core as well as the various Spring Data modules. Spring Data Couchbase, lending itself to key values, type access is a natural place to have a cache manager implementation. So here we configure that implementation by defining a bean of type Couchbase cache manager, passing in a reference to the Couchbase client, and then configuring the name of the cache instance, in this case called Beautiful and so on. Enable caching.
Okay, and then for saying that you want to cache the results of an operation, like say a service operation that does a search that takes a bit of time, you have to add the Spring @cacheable annotation. Places is the name of the cache we just defined in the configuration, and key is, well, that's the one that's going to be used in Couchbase. So here we're seeing that the key will be cache : the query parameters. So
that when this method gets called, it's going to look at the first parameter, use that as a key. It's going to prefix it with cache : and then the value will be the return value, the list of IDs that we get from this method. Subsequent invocations will short circuit, and they'll just go straight to the cache instead of trying to actually do the Facebook lookup and all that stuff. So you can cache hot path code like this. Is that clear? Okay. 0.
okay,
Thanks, Mom.
let's do a quick. Let's run this. And we're going to show you how it looks like in Couchbase, and then we're going to show you how to actually empty the complete cache.
Right. Let's go ahead and get the exception.
Another view.
What's our exception?
Yeah, it's here. Let's comment that.
Goodbye. Heyo. Wait for it.
Now, in the
Wait for
meantime,
it.
we can explain you. Let's gain some time here. How the evict method function works.
All right. There's a corresponding annotation called Spring's cache API has annotations for eviction as well. But in our case, we decided we wanted something that would just randomly go through and purge our data.
So it should be in there. Let's just go over
Actually,
the.
That was a terrible test. We should try running it at the same time, running it twice, right? Because then you won't see the results. Oh, actually, well, you'll see it now, right? You'll actually see data in there.
In there, yeah. So you can just go into the cache entries views and show results, and we should see our two objects. So we did a view that returns all the cache entries. You remember we used a key called cache colon the name of the parameters. So all we had to do is make sure that the ID of the document started with cache colon, which is the beginning of our key. And right now we have a view that returns all the cache entries. So if we do a find by this view, we can just empty everything.
Can we see the data from this?
Well, you can, but it's if you want to see it here, you just have to
Go for it.
Or we can go there. It's going to be faster, actually.
Here, control zoom out.
That's okay.
Voila.
And as you can see, it stores binary.
So that's the collection of IDs being stored in the database for us.
So it doesn't.
Couchbase will look at that and load it up
like
later.
anything, actually, but yeah, you know.
Editing of binary, yeah.
Yeah.
So caching is really powerful, really good way to, and obviously, in this case, we're caching data that's being written to Couchbase, so it's not that much of a gain, but if you know some idiot that's trying to call a web service or something like that and in the hot path, you know, give that code some help, you know. Okay, I think that is sort of the bulk of it. Before you go, we're looking at Spring Session integration. Spring Session is an API that lets you plug in different backend providers for HTTP session replication. So you can use Couchbase as a session store for HTTP web apps. Any servlet container, you plug in this SPI and it overrides the default mechanism. There are other such implementations, but of course Couchbase has really great scalability characteristics, so it'd be nice to have this one. Spring XD is our turnkey big data integration and ingestion solution. Being able to read and write data from Spring XD is a very natural thing to do. Imagine Spring XD is the kind of thing you might imagine powering the Internet of Things style solutions, you know, really large onslaughts of data. With that, I am still Josh, and this is Laurent. We're your hosts. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us on these coordinates here. We're happy to help. Any questions, thoughts, feedback? Thank you, by the way, if you guys are here. Thank you so much.